The story begins with a glimpse of a masked boy under the red moon. Goblins start being aggressive of his presence, attacking him together as a group, but the masked boy just quickly slices them apart in the blink of an eye, while screaming that he wants more monsters to slay. Then, we see a carriage along the road. Far from the carriage, we see goblins planning an attack. The carriage was being chased by goblins, while the man riding the carriage calls for help. Luckily, a group of warriors or adventurers riding horses came to fend off these goblins. We see arrows hitting a horde of goblins, all from an archer behind a swordsman riding on a horse, which eventually swings his sword. It's a part of adventurers full of diverse roles, like a guy with a two-handed axe, ambushing the goblins like an assassin. We then see the royal capital enclosed in walls. The main character starts to get hungry, while the same group of adventurers arrives at the capital talking about how their level went up from the goblins. They went across our main character, Fate, which got him thinking. He can't be like the adventurers after all, because of his useless skill that makes his stomach growl and hungry all the time. He thinks to himself that he should just be grateful for getting a job, guarding the gates despite his worthless skill. In the marketplace full of people and adventurers transacting with each other, we see the Holy Knights passing through, known as the trio of the Vletic siblings. The citizens are trying their best to avoid catching their attention as much as possible. When a piece of orange hit one of the knights' foot, a citizen asked for an apology, but he just got kicked instead. The citizen tried to explain that it was not his intention, but no one can fight or talk back against the Holy Knights. As the knight threatened that those who insult them will have their heads cut off, one of the knights told them to stop, but warned the man to not let it happen again. The Holy Knights walk away, while murmuring how the man got lucky for getting by with no punishment. The adventurers and citizens alike find it hard to believe how the Holy Knights are acting like that, especially with Lady Roxy, a kind-hearted woman that is part of the Holy Knights. As the day is about to end, Fate is just trying to push through as his shift is about to end. We then see the same group of Holy Knights entering the castle, where Fate is acting as a guard of the gate. They ask if Fate has done a proper job of guarding the gate, to which he responded yes. They drop coins on the ground as payment for Fate, making him pick up the coins on the ground. As he reaches for the coins, one of the knights steps on his hand, insulting him how he's so filthy and he didn't notice Fate at all. And the everyday routine of the Holy Knights bullying Fate happens again, kicking him in the stomach, while Fate tried to endure thinking how the world is unfair because of skills being distributed without being balanced. Those with good skills end up in a position with power, while those with worthless skills like him are at the mercy of those in power. These entitled knights think that they should be thankful still, as Fate can still work despite his useless skill. As they tell Fate to stand up, as it reflects poorly on them when he's slacking, one of the knights stomps his feet on his face. Before things get worse, we see Roxy Hart, another Holy Knight, telling them to stop what they were doing. She preached about how the Holy Knights should not abuse their power on citizens they've sworn to protect, and even saying that guarding the gate is a noble responsibility that the knights should have. The knights have claimed that it's also their job to provide employment for those who have nots, or those who are not blessed with good skills, like these Holy Knights. The trio of knights then go inside the castle, and Roxy extends her hand to Fate while asking him if he's alright. Fate thinks of Raphael Vlerick from the trio of the Holy Knights as they walk away, thinking how they got pissed off from having their abuse stopped by Roxy. She tends to the wounds of Fate, and he thanks her for that. She said that it's how the Holy Knights should act, and then she asked for the banner as it's her turn to guard the gate. She said that she's always open to Fate if he ever needs help, and if something similar happens, he should let her know. But Fate just had a smile on his face, saying that everything is fine. Deep inside, however, he's worried that Roxy might be involved with the Holy Knights that were abusing their power. We see Fate in a cafe eating a piece of bread and soup, and the bar owner approached him, asking him if he got knocked down again by the Holy Knights. He might end up like the last guy because of endless abuse and brutal labor. As Fate leaves the bar and pays for the meal with a copper coin, the bar owner hopes that he won't end up like the last guy, walking across the streets while still hungry even after a meal. He laments how useless and stupid his skill of gluttony is, making him hungry all the time and his stomach growling. He also wishes how he could have had a skill that would make him like a Holy Knight, or even just a warrior or a merchant. However, that can't be changed, as when you have nothing, you're trapped as a loser. He saw a group of thieves while strolling around, and quickly informs Roxy about this. She asked him if he is certain about this, to which he replies yes. She then decided to go after the thieves, and leaves Fate to take up guarding the gate temporarily, while she rushes into the scene to stop the thieves inside the castle. Just as Fate thinks it's over, he sees one of the thieves wounded and escaping. This startles Fate, but it's his duty to guard the gate. If he runs, it will cause trouble for Roxy, so he convinces himself that even a weakling like himself can protect the gate, and prepares the spear to lunge towards the running thief. As the two of them clashes together, Fate lets out a scream to reassure himself that he can handle the injured thief himself, piercing the spear across the thief's body, making the thief fall from the ground bleeding heavily. As Fate realizes how he just killed the man and it's now all over, we see a voice pop up inside Fate's head, saying that Gluttony skill is activated, increasing stats. Fate suddenly saw an increase in stats, the number of new skills he can use. As he was wondering what just happened, Roxy rushed to come back and ask if he was just fine. She grabbed his hand and heard a voice from Roxy, saying that he doesn't look well. It's worrying. This made Fate confused, as it seemed like he could hear her inner voice. He said that he's not hurt, which Roxy thought to herself how that's a relief. And Fate is wondering how he also heard Roxy's inner voice once again. Roxy said that she's about to make a report about this, and stopped holding his hand, and Fate can no longer hear her inner voice by then. She asked him if he's listening, to which he replied yes, and that she should take all the credit, as this may annoy one of the Holy Knights like Sir Raphael Vlerick, as well as potentially giving her trouble. As gratitude towards Fate, she offers him to work for the Hart family, which is better compared to serving the Vlericks until the end. A future treated like trash by the Holy Knights, or a bright one full of warmth working for Roxy Hart, worried that his next replacement might get a harsh treatment as the guard of the gate. Roxy assures him that it won't be his responsibility, as it is supposedly the duty of the Holy Knights to guard the gate, and so he accepts her proposition. As Fate goes back home, he sees how his stats are in the triple digits now. He wondered how that happened, and questioning the skills Identify and Telepathy. Looking back, he realizes how he could hear Roxy's thoughts when she held his hand, as well as when he killed the thief, and his skill of Gluttony suddenly activating that time. While wondering what's happening to him, he felt confident that with the increased stats, he should be able to slay monsters this time. The next day, he went in town to look for a sword. While he was looking around, a merchant approaches him, hoping to find a good customer. He asked for his budget, but was disappointed to know that Fate is dirt poor for having only 2 silver coins as his budget. These 2 silver coins was the result of Fate saving up for 5 years since he came to the royal capital. The merchant directed him towards a barrel of weapons that are considered as trash, saying that's all he could get from those coins. Fate thought to himself that it's better than nothing. So with this new skill Identify that he acquired, he appraised each weapon from the barrel, and lots of them has 0 durability and power left. After finding 3 swords with no durability, a sword catches his interest. It's filthy and treated like trash, just like him. The weapon then suddenly talked to Fate, and this startled him, while the merchant thought of Fate as a weird fellow. Fate was sure that the sword just talked, and the sword's name is Grid. Grid told Gluttony to buy him, as it will be worth his time. Fate was surprised to know how the sword knows about Gluttony, asking him how did he know about it. Grid just responded that they both have a lot in common. As Fate thinks about it, he leaves the 2 silver coins to the store and walks away with the sword. Inside the room, we see Melim talking to Raphael on how Roxy tried to hire Fate to work for the Hart family without asking the Vlerick family. Melim talked to his brother how they should be teaching them a lesson. Raphael just responded that it's not worth their time as Fate is just replaceable. Memil was irked off with how Roxy complained on the handling of their guarding duty. The Harts and the Vlericks are part of the 5 great families that support the kingdom, so there's no use in complicating things. Raphael then thinks that it's time to head to the military district. Memil asked him on what made him so enthusiastic about his studies there. He said that he's studying on how to become immortal, but Memil thinks the thing about immortality as being a joke and that he was just teasing her. We then see Fate graphite across the fields. While Grid is memorizing his full name, Grid notices the presence of goblins and told that to Fate. As a goblin jumped on him, his eye starts to glow and he slashes his sword on the goblin, making his skill Gluttony activate. This increased his stats and a new skill called Strength Boost is acquired. He said to himself that it happened again, his Gluttony skill being activated. Surrounding him, Grid notices that there's more enemies, making Grid laugh as he remembers the saying that when you see a goblin, there's 100 more around. It seems like that saying is true because there's suddenly more goblins hungry for blood around Fate. The sheer amount of goblins startles Fate. As the goblins charge towards Fate, he tries to defend against the goblins with all his might and slays them one by one, all the while his Gluttony skill activates every single time. While the skill keeps on activating during the slaughter of the goblins, this only ended after his rampage, causing him to gain new skills and an increase in stats. Greed mentioned how Fate should notice that he isn't hungry anymore. He's surprised as it's the first time he never felt hungry and that his stomach is not making a sound anymore, but he also found it weird that he suddenly gained new skills, as he thought that the only skills you have are those that were granted to you when you were born. Grid said that it's because of the gluttony skill. Normally, stats only increase from battle and you gain experience as you level up, but with gluttony, it divorces the stats and skills, making them your own, but at the cost of not gaining any experience points to level up. This answers Fate's question on why he's still at level 1. Fate wonders how Grid knows about it, but Grid just replied that it's because they're in the same boat. As we see a group of adventurers from afar, Grid reminds him that gluttony is a skill that you shouldn't let people know, as it is one of the skills that defy the divine law. Fate realizes then that he should fight on his own, but Grid told him that he isn't alone anymore as they are in this journey together. He then proceeded to collect the goblin ears to exchange them for money, which got him 3 silver and 80 bronze coins from the 38 goblins he defeated. He's excited to try out meat for dinner, but Grid said that maintenance comes first, emphasizing that he was named Grid for a reason. Although Fate still insists that meat comes first, especially since it's been 5 years, he bumps into a man and falls on the ground, noticing how there's a young girl being pulled around by that man. Fate uses his Identify skill and notices that he can't read the man's skills and can only see his stats. It turns out that the man has the skill called Conceal, which hides his list of skills. Fate is determined to save the girl as he can't ignore this. We see the girl wrapped in chains, with the man saying to her that she should be happy, as trash like her can still be of some use as a toy for the Holy Knights. This scares the little girl, making her cry, while the man laughs. Grid warns him that the man is tough, and it's his last chance to run away. But now that he has gained power, he doesn't want to ignore those who are suffering in front of him, and he wants to help them. We then see a church or an orphanage, with the nun explaining to the children that Holy Laplas is the creator of their world. She gifted people with special powers before she parted ways with them. She asked the children if they know what are these special powers. The children replied that they are called skills. As they asked for blessing for their meal, one of them feels sad and refuses to eat. He said that Holy Laplas is not fair, as the Holy Knights and Warriors all have amazing skills, while he has such a weak skill. Maybe that's why he was abandoned. The nun responded that in the old times, when Holy Laplas protected the world, there were no skills or stats, as well as monsters. Everyone was equal in this aspect. The boy wished that he had been born in that era, where everyone was equal. As the nun tries to comfort him, another nun came inside the room and told her that one of the children still can't be found inside the church, which prompted her to search at the town. This worries her, thinking where could Sahara be. Back to the warehouse, we see Sahara still chained near a metal bar, the man provoking the girl to keep crying as he keeps stomping his feet on the bar, claiming that she'll be a toy for the Holy Knights. Thinking that this is such a pain, the man walks away for a moment while the girl is left alone crying. Fate approaches the girl and unchains her, telling her that everything's now going to be okay, even though it's not all might. As Fate urges the girl to get up, she was surprised and shocked to see the man coming back so suddenly. It seems that the man was not surprised, as there are idiots who would waltz in here just for some misguided notion of justice. This doesn't scare Fate, and he prepares to draw his swords towards the man. The man is wondering how he'll be able to fight while protecting the kid. Fate thinks where could be a safe place for the child. That's the least he could do right now. Grid told him that he has an idea and directed him to go ahead and back away. The man thinks that he's stronger than Fate, so they're going to use his confidence and arrogance against him. Fate takes the child away and walks away, as the man threatens that if these boxes are knocked down, Fate will be the one to be buried first. He thinks while saying aloud how killing Fate in front of the child's eyes would make her completely obedient. Fate then knocks one of the boxes down to create smoke and lands a sneak attack on him, slightly touching his face. The man then uses the skill Sharp Edge to prepare for battle. Grid told Fate to strike the man down through his weapon, rendering the man's skill useless with his sword cut in half and piercing his chest. Fate asked the man who ordered to have the girl kidnapped. As Fate plunged the sword deeper inside the man, he speaks up and told him that it was Hado of Lyric that gave the order. Memories of him resurfaced to Fate, as Hado carries a bow and an arrow, while kids would hold an apple above their head, hoping that Hado won't hit their head. As Fate guides the child away from danger, his stomach started to growl and invited the girl to grab a bite. He asked for her name while introducing himself. She said her name Sahara, and then Fate proceeded to treat her to food on the streets. They eat while sitting on the bench, and Sahara never tasted meat before, so it tasted good. This brought her to tears while eating, and Fate is touched by this, so he offers her to also have his steak of meat. Sahara safely comes back to the orphanage, as the nun warmly hugs Sahara. They thank Fate for bringing her back home safely, and Fate was startled that it was just the first time that anybody thanked him since he has such a useless skill. This made Sahara puzzled, to which he said that his skill just makes him hungry. Fate encourages Sahara that no matter how hard things get, if you laugh, then you'll eventually eventually be happy one day. This quote reminds him of his father, which helped him reach where he is right now. So he passed on that encouragement to others too. Upon slaying the man in the warehouse, Fate received a new skill called the one-handed sword technique. This is his first technical skill, which allows you to get tech arts that are like secret techniques. In this case, the new skill allows him to attack twice in just one strike. Fate said that Grid should have warned him that the man might be dangerous, but Grid said that nobody would want to interrupt a hero in the middle of saving a little girl. As they walk back home, Grid said that the truth is, a battle comes down to the luck of the moment. The stronger person wouldn't always win. Fate thinks that he got lucky this time, so he wants to be stronger. Strong enough so that he won't need luck to win battles. Grid reminded Fate that it's his first day working for the Hearts tomorrow, and asked him if he's going to work looking like that. Turns out that Fate completely forgot about this. Inside a bar, we hear a rumor being spread around that Sir Mason Hart was struck down by a divine dragon in Gallia. This news came from a warrior friend of the customer, making the news certain. The bar owner is thinking what would happen to the Hart family then, to which the customer responded that Roxy Hart would succeed his father. Sir Mason was the one keeping the Holy Knights from going out of control, so he's worried that Roxy might not be able to do that. They're referring to the Valeric siblings, which no good news ever comes with them. The bar owner said that he only likes to talk about pleasant things, so the customer and the bar owner talked about Fate, noticing that he hasn't dropped by, as he used to go to the bar after work every day. Inside the Holy Knight district of the Hart family, Fate is surprised to see how big the place is. Mesmerizing at the things inside, Roxy calls out to him, and Fate is impressed by what Roxy is wearing, leaving him speechless. As Roxy talks to him, he seems to be unresponsive, to which Fate replies that he was just stunned by her beauty. Roxy blushed from this, and she complimented Fate too, for wearing clothes neatly. They went towards the grave, and Roxy introduced Fate to her father in the grave. A new worker is around the manor, which will make things lively again. Fate asked whose grave is this, and Roxy said it is from her father, which died 5 days ago from the dragon he encountered in Gallia. Gallia is a continent dominated by monsters. It's one of the major duties by the Holy Knights to keep these monsters contained. It seems that the duty this time fell to the Hart family this year. It's a dangerous task, but not deadly. However, a divine dragon which hasn't left its lair in over 1,000 years killed Sir Mason's forces, leaving no man behind. Fate had no idea that she has been looking for him, even though she's going through such a hard situation. Roxy said for Fate to not look sad, as she is now the head of the Hart family. She counts for him to make the place a joyous one, to which Fate agrees. As they are about to shake hands, Fate remembers that he might be able to read her mind, so he suddenly directed his hand towards a random direction, pointed towards a maid. Roxy introduces Fate to the maid, to which the maid replied that she is Haru, the chief maid of the Hart estate. She asked him to behave in a manner fitting of a servant in the Hart family. As they eat inside, Fate is delighted by how delicious the food was. He must really like meat, while Harry is a bit upset about his manner of eating. As Fate go on with his new work cutting grass, an old man tells him to not forget taking a break. Fate said to Mr. Oliver that he will be taking a break right after he finishes here. It's been a week since Fate started working for the Hart family, and Minerva first thought that he's a weirdo who's always talking to a sword. Oliver also mentions how he keeps on shaking when eating meat. Fate explains that it has been 5 years since he last had meat, to which they all laughed. Just then, Fate's stomach let out a roar, and they asked if Fate had actually eaten, as they just had lunch. Fate said that it might just be a growth spurt, as he had eaten already. Haru approached him, telling him that Roxy is calling for him. He felt weird that his stomach still kept on growling, even though he had eaten something. Roxy is inside a garden, and they had tea together. She asked Fate if he has gotten used to working in the manor, but Fate just felt hungrier and hungrier, unable to hear her words, and worried that he may not be able to suppress his hunger. As she yelled out his name as Faye, it was reminded him of his father, since that's what he used to call him. Fate said that he also lost his father to a monster. He asked why she would call him Faye, and she responded by saying that it's a nickname. It's part of making the Hart estate a joyful place, since he's part of the family now. Fate felt embarrassed by this, but he suddenly felt dizzy and passes out. He wakes up in the middle of the night inside his room. He sees a letter, telling him to take the day off tomorrow and just take a break. He asks Greed on what's happening inside him. He could suppress his hunger from before, but now it's getting worse. Greed said that the die has already been cast. Once the glutinous skill gets a taste of souls, there's no stopping it. The more you devour, the stronger you get, but it also makes you want more, destined to seek out souls to consume until you die. Fate asked what would happen if he doesn't seek souls to consume, and Greed said that he may starve to death, or lose control and start attacking indiscriminately, just like a monster. When the hunger is about to reach its limit, it will be visible on the eyes. Fate notices how red his eyes are, just like a vampire. There's no turning back now. As he went out of town, it suddenly seems like people around him looks delicious. That's because of the skill hunger boost, said Grid, which is in effect when his eyes turn red. It's a temporary power to boost the gluttony skill. Fate gets better night vision and the ability to trap prey by smell, while paralyzing the weaker prey with fear. This is evident when the goblins are just standing around him doing nothing, to which Fate draws his sword and starts the feast upon devouring these goblins. However, it is still not enough, so they head over to the Hobo Goblin Forest. One of them went after Fate, but was just struck down in a single strike. This caused the other Hobo Goblin to flee, but Fate is still feeling hungry, so he kept devouring until he feels satisfied. After some time, he finally consumed enough souls, and he doesn't want to feel this way again. Grid said that he'll need to hunt monsters every now and then to avoid this. Suddenly, the earth is shaking from the steps of a monster. A Goblin King appears, and upon appraising its skills and stats, it doesn't have a larger gap with Fate, but has the health regeneration skill. Fate wants that useful skill, so he sneaks upon the Goblin King. While it was feasting upon a human, Fate felt puking from this, as it's weird to see his own kind being eaten. Fate stealthily comes closer, then launches a surprise attack on the Goblin King. Fate spaces out for a moment, and Greed snaps him out of it and tells him to dodge. The Goblin King keeps on trying to hit him with a club, even if he lost one of his arms. Fate is worried about the club, so he just kept on running away. Greed told him that he isn't going to win like this, but he is concerned about the club. However, the club is weaker than Greed, so he said to Fate that he should trust in him, and so Fate swings his sword against the club and demolished it to pieces, then strikes upon the Goblin King with its head, finally ending the battle. The Gluttony skill activated, increasing his stats a lot with 5 digits, as well as the skill health regeneration being acquired. Grid said that with his new stats, his first level should be able to be accessed. Fate questions what this first level is, to which Grid replied that it's just another form of him. If Fate gives up his stats to Grid, he will acquire new functions. Fate likes that, so he asked how much of his stats does he have to give up. It turns out that all of the stats he obtained from the moment they started their journey together needs to be given away for the new form to be unlocked. Grid really lives up to its name. Fate thinks twice, as he was thinking to not proceed anymore, as he's just too greedy. However, he will lose the right to wield the sword if he refuses to unlock the first form. Fate can get stronger on his own or make Greed stronger too, so they can work together. Now is the time to choose. This leaves Fate with no choice, as Greed is his only partner. Greed said that he won't regret his choice, and proceeds with absorbing the stats of Fate. While glowing, you can see that the first form of Greed is not a sword, but a bow. It's a magic bow and not just any ordinary bow. Greed said that there's someone eyeing up Fate for a while now. It's the perfect chance to test out his new form. Wondering where the arrows are, he said to just draw on the bow, and they'll magically appear on their own. It's magic indeed. So Fate draws upon his bow, and it comes with a homing projectile that can land on any target he wishes. He takes the ears of the Goblin King and leaves it in front of the church where Sahara is staying. This should be enough to keep them fed for a while. The next day, we see Roxy inside of the Heart Estate, wearing a different set of clothes. As she was about to leave, Fate calls out to her, asking who she is. This surprises her, and Fate as well, as she looks different from the usual clothes that Roxy normally wears. Fate asks her if she's going to the castle like that, and Roxy tells him that she's going to the town in order to do a secret inspection. That explains the disguise, and she tells him to keep quiet about this, as their chief maid, Haru, will surely scold her given that she is the head of the family. He understands, and Roxy tells him very good for getting it. Even though they're this close to each other, yet they're still not kissing, unfortunately. As Fate apologizes for delaying her inspection, she suddenly had a great idea and assigns him a top secret mission. He will accompany the head of the family during the secret inspection as her escort. Roxy is clearly enjoying the inspection, leading the way as Fate follows from behind. He called out to her to slow down, and Greed tells Fate that if he keeps calling her Roxy, the people will see through her disguise. So she approached him and tells him to stop, saying that she'll get noticed if he calls her as Roxy. Again, without kissing, even if they're this close. Greed reiterates what he just said, and Fate speaks out his mind loudly, saying shut up to Greed. Roxy doesn't know about Fate talking to Greed like that, so she was puzzled by what he just said. Fate tells her to don't give it any mind. While thinking of a name, Roxy tells Fate to call her as Lexi. We don't know any lore from that name, but that's who Roxy is just for today. Fate thinks that the name isn't that far from Roxy, and Grid tells that to Fate again, to which Fate said shut up again to his sword, and Lexi was shocked by this, so she asked for an apology for being so annoying. Don't worry Lexi, it's not your fault as it's this guy's fault. So Fate told her that it's not that he's annoyed, and acts like he didn't say the words shut up at all, telling her how she's not annoying at all. Lexi believes her and tells him that she was just a bit excited at the thought of only two of them heading out together, just like a date. Fate felt embarrassed by this, followed by Lexi's blushing over her cheeks. Greed teases Fate how pure his feelings are. Oh, the feelings of youth. Fate grabs his sword and tells it to seriously pipe down. Lexi stops him and told him that she won't allow him to treat his sword so roughly. Greed agrees, saying that the Holy Knight knows her stuff. Fate apologizes, and she realizes that she has never given a proper look at his sword from before. He's worried that she'll get suspicious how he got the sword, given that he has such a useless skill. Not to mention that he's worried with what Greed told him. The gluttonous skill already had a taste of souls, and there's no stopping it. The stronger he gets from the souls he consumes, the more he wants. And if he doesn't do that, he'll either starve to death or lose control and start attacking anyone in his way. Fate thought that he must not let her know about the secret behind his gluttony skill. Fate carelessly drops the sword while in the middle of his thoughts, and Lexi catches it before hitting the ground. She likes to see his sword and unsheaths it, and she thinks that the sword would need some maintenance. So she told him that he'll show him to the Hart family's blacksmith later. He thanks her and proceeds to go on their way. He tells Grid that he's finally going to get polished up by someone. Grid didn't respond, so Fate asked him what's up, and it looks like even Grid got embarrassed from being touched by Lexi and enjoying his moment. He mentions how she smells really nice, even though it's just a sword, and Fate got pissed off by this, thinking that maybe he should throw the sword around after all. Lexi tells her to come with her before he could even start getting rough with his sword, and they eventually reach the town bustling with fruits, vegetable, meat, and people. A bunch of grapes caught her attention, and the merchant praises her for having a good eye, as these fresh grapes came from the Hart family's vineyard this morning. Lexi asked to try out the grapes, and the merchant complies. Faye is surprised with how delicious they are, and she responded by saying that it's grown at home, so it's delicious of course. This puzzles the merchant, and Faye is worried that Roxy's disguise might be blown away, so Grid gives him an idea to tell the merchant that one of Lexi's relatives works for the Hart family. That's why she's said at home. The merchant understands and walks away as another customer is planning to buy from him. That was a close call, and she praises him for the quick thinking, which Grid tells him that he owes him one for it. Fate responded that he knows, and Lexi asked if he do know, and he just said that he's just talking to himself as usual. How silly of Faye, she said. One of the citizens said that the Holy Knights are coming, so the citizens tried their best to stay out of their way. They asked what could be their business in the market. Ever since Sir Mason of the Holy Knights died, even the lowest of them became unbearable. As Fate and Lexi looks at the knight passing by, Fate's stomach starts to growl, and this catches the knight's attention. Nice timing, said Grid to Fate, and Fate loudly speaks his mind again of saying shut up, which made the knight ask who made that noise. Fate realizes that there's no escaping the situation. What a nightmare he's in. As the knight approaches him and asks if he's the one who made the noise, he starts to bow and ask for apologies. The knight said that he can't hear him, so Fate apologizes louder, but the knight said that he still can't hear him as he prepares to raise his feet, scaring the citizens around. Before Fate is hit, Lexi tells the knight to stop, telling him that he already apologized. The knight asks who is this reckless girl that dares to talk back to a holy knight. The knight feels familiar with her face, and some of the citizens ask if the girl was Lady Roxy. Fate is worried that her cover will be blown, so Grid told Fate to pretend that they are lovers. Get real clingy and no one will think it's Roxy. Fate is shocked by this, speaking out his mind loudly on pretending to be lovers. Roxy catches that, so she grabbed his arm and helped him get up while asking him why he didn't eat the breakfast she prepared for him. Fate said that it just seemed too good to eat. She gets embarrassed by this, saying that it's just ridiculous of a reason. She tells him that if he doesn't want to eat it, then she won't make breakfast again. Fate then promises to eat the breakfast that she makes. Grid mentions how this act is getting awkward, and Lexi clears her throat, then tells the knight that she'll make sure that he eats next time and begs for pardon. As they walk away, the citizens think that the girl couldn't have been Roxy, as there's no way a holy knight knows how to cook. They hide away from the crowd, thinking that it's all good now, and Fate can hear her voice once again on how she has never linked arms with a boy before. Her heart is still racing, and Fate quickly grabs his arm and asks for forgiveness about that. Lexi said that it's all good, as she's used to it, contrary to what she really thinks. So she started walking and said that it's time to get moving. Fate is starting to think that escorting Lexi is maybe a bit too tough for him. While Lexi is looking at something, he asks her if something caught her eye. He noticed that she's looking at a red gem, and she said that she's a girl after all, even if she's a knight. So of course, she'd be interested in gems. Lexi asked if these rocks are also gems, and the merchant said that these are ours. They may contain a gem or not, just like a gacha experience. With Fate's skill, called Identify, he looks at the art to know which one is a gem and which one does not. Lexi is looking at a blue gem happily. She looks just just like a normal girl, and not a holy knight at all. The merchant offered a discount to Fate if he's planning to buy one for her girlfriend. Fate felt embarrassed when the merchant said that Lexi is her girlfriend. She puts the gem back and told the merchant that she has no use for it. He asks her if she's really sure about this, to which she said yes. She then asked if he knows any active warrior, unlike Oliver and Minerva from the Heart Estate that's already retired. So while they're walking, they heard citizens talking about those dead goblins. Rumor has it that a wandering monster killed those goblins. Fate was puzzled on how people came up with that conclusion. But the weird thing is that the ears of a goblin king was donated to the church or orphanage in the slums. The sisters couldn't find who donated the ears, and Lexi approaches them asking for more details. They said that she's better off asking some warriors instead of them, and walks away. So she asked Fate if he can take her to any place where warriors gather. He asked her if this is really what the inspection is about, and Lexi said that it is. She's investigating the wandering monster around the capital. She doesn't know that it's actually Fate wandering, and Greed thinks that this is an interesting twist. They went to the bar Fate frequents to, and as they were about to sit near his regular spot, the bar owner tells him that he can't sit there as it's for a regular of his that passed away. Then, he's surprised to see that Fate is still alive. He asked if he could sit there, and the owner said to go ahead. He introduces Lexi to the bar owner as a co-worker from his new job. The owner tells Lexi to take care of Fate in his new job. The owner even tells Fate how surprising it is that he shows up now after all this time with a girlfriend. Fate tells him that it's not like that, and he's worried that this might have offended Roxy. Grid even jokingly said that he might be executed for it. Roxy accidentally breaks one of the cups from the bar and asks for an apology. The owner said to don't let it bother them, as there are a few warriors who are bad at controlling their stats. Although Grid said that it's probably because she was feeling self-conscious about Fate, making him break the cup he's holding too. Grid said that this just proves how high his stats have become, though the owner said that the glass was on its last legs. Fate laughs this off, and they proceed to talk about the goblins while eating. The owner heard about a warrior killing goblins. He went out to hunt and found a mountain of dead goblins, with their ears still intact. A warrior would usually seek to cash in on the bounties, so Lexi said that it may be a wandering monster from another region. The owner said that it's bad for business then, as going to the capital to sell items requires you to pass through the goblin plains. This would scare the people from traveling. Fate realizes that it's his fault that things are like that. One of the regulars came inside the bar, and Fate greets him, but he just got surprised that a ghost was talking to him. After a while, the old man talked about how the popular theory about the wandering monster is that it's a lich. This is the reason why the Holy Knights will be taking direct action to deal with it. A warrior friend of the old man told him, so the information is certain. Fate and Greed is worried to face off the Holy Knights, as his stats are just freshly drained. The old man asked Lexi what got her so curious about the monster. Fate is worried that if Roxy joins the hunt and sees him, he doesn't know what will happen. Traveling warriors came inside the bar and ordered food and drinks. One of them started hitting on Lexi, which got Fate angry and told him to stop. Lexi stands up and pushes away the guy, hitting on her with just a slight nudge. They're surprised as only a Holy Knight could pull a move like that. Roxy then starts to remove her braids, and everyone recognized her as Roxy the Holy Knight, which the bar owner already figured out. The traveling warriors were scared that she might punish them and asked for her to spare their lives. They tried to offer money, but Roxy said that it's not needed, as people should not fear them, as it's their duty as Holy Knights to protect them. She is ashamed by the image of the Holy Knights and regards how this came to be. A world where everyone could laugh together is her father's dream, and one that she shares. Fate thinks to himself that he will follow her until that wish is granted. The next day, we see Greed getting polished, and he felt like a new sword. They walk together after, and while talking, Fate mentions how come Roxy doesn't know about the hunt. It seems that the initiative is spearheaded by the Vlerick family, and didn't inform the Hart family. Speaking of the devil, we see a kid being bullied by the three of knights from the Vlerick family. Hado is pissed off to see Roxy again, and Milliam said that they're just talking to a lost child into their protection. What kind of protection is this? Roxy asked Fate to take the child from these Holy Knights, making Hado lose his grip on the child. And Raphael said to Fate how he seems to be doing well. Fate just bowed his head and went back to Roxy. She asked them why she was not informed about the hunt for the wandering monster. They responded that she must be occupied with her departed father, so they didn't bother to inform her. The knights then walk away, with Hado pissed off with the look Fate is giving. Fate and Roxy walks around in town to look for the child's parents, and this reminded Fate of the time he also got lost when his father died and he moved to the capital. He wondered what happened to the Holy Knight who looked after him 5 years ago, which looks like Roxy back then. After finding the parents of the child, they realized how late is this, and Roxy asked Fate that if they get in trouble, they'll do it together. Fate agrees, and they proceeded to get back to their home. Fate hopes that days like this would last forever. Later that night, he asks Greed if there's a way to hunt monsters without Roxy finding out. A mask looks like a good choice, and one with magic that makes you look different from others seeing them. so Fate buys one the next morning, and bought an ore as well to give to Roxy. He gives it to her as part of his gratitude for his new job and family that he has now. Roxy breaks the ore and admires how beautiful it is from the inside. Meanwhile, we see the Vlerick family in a table, and Raphael leading the meeting, which they will discuss the excursion to Gallia. On that night, under a full moon, we see a group of adventurers and dead monsters around. They are wondering when are the Holy Knights going to take action about the wandering monster. Suddenly, a masked man appears on top of the dead monsters. The adventurers run away, screaming that it's Corpse the Leech, a warrior named Corpse. Greed likes the name given to them. Fate wanted to get his level as high as he can before confronting the Holy Knights. The next day, Fate yawns while cutting grass, thinking that leading a double life is not so easy after all. Roxy approaches him and assigns a secret mission for him. He asks if it's another inspection, but they ride inside a carriage, and she points outside, telling him that the land he sees belongs to the Hart family. Fate asked if the secret mission is about harvesting grapes. Roxy reminded him about the grapes they saw in the market, so she wanted him to see them up close. As they arrive at the farm, her mother greets Roxy. Roxy told her that she didn't need to greet them, but it's all good, as her mother is feeling better today. Her mother is interested in who the boy with Roxy is, and she introduced him as a new servant that she hired. He introduces himself as Fate Graphite, and her mother introduced herself as Aisha Hart. She asked Fate to come closer to her, and asked if he likes her daughter. This flustered Roxy, as it's a sudden question out of the blue, and she said that she is just interested in his opinion about his new employer. Fate and Roxy lets out a sigh of relief, as that's what the mother meant about liking her daughter. Fate responded that he cared a great deal for Roxy, and she would serve her until the end of his life, if he is allowed. This made the mother delighted, while Roxy feeling embarrassed. As Fate looks at Roxy, she said that she is going to rest in her room first. Aisha said that Roxy always runs off when things get too uncomfortable, and she hasn't changed at all. When she was little, she was also quite the crybaby, throwing a fit from just a glimpse of a bug. It's surprising for Fate, given how she acts at the capital as a Holy Knight. Her mother still finds it hard to believe that her little girl is now a Holy Knight, worried that she might be pushing herself too hard after losing her father and becoming the head of the family. Fate reassures her that Roxy is doing a great job as a Holy Knight, and a lot of people trust her. As Roxy enters her room, she sees a picture of her father and herself, as well as some of her toys, reminiscing about the past and how her father trained her when she became a Holy Knight. Roxy just wanted to be the kind of Holy Knight that her father is. One who laughs with the people, quite befitting as a member of the Hart family, before fulfilling her promise with her father. As they gathered the grapes, one of them offered Fate a glass of grape juice, and it looks like the lords have personally cultivated this land for generations already. This led to the great flavor their grapes have. The worker thinks that it must be hard for Roxy to suddenly lose her father, and is grateful that Roxy still showed up for the harvest. The harvest isn't the only purpose of the visit, as there are monsters looking to get food from it. There are kobolds from the valley in the north, and then Fate's stomach makes a noise again. Grid said that after all those goblins, the gluttonous Gill is still hungry for different souls. As the day is about to end, Roxy tells Fate to head back, as she still has things to do. Fate does this and walks back, but encounters a girl with a large two-handed axe on her back. As they walk towards each other, the girl speaks to him. He realizes how her eyes also look red, just like him when he's in starvation mode. She told him that she arrived too early. She came after those kobolds, but told him that he can have them. She said that they'll meet again, and that he owes her for this. He asked Greed if he knows anything about the girl, but didn't give Fate a direct answer. Greed seems to know something, as he was quiet the whole time, as opposed to his usual chatty nature. But Greed denies it. Even though as great as he is, there are still some things he doesn't know. Roxy carries 2 baskets of grapes while encountering the girl, and gives the basket to Fate. She believes that the girl just earlier is a Gallian. Fate thought that Gallia was destroyed 4,000 years ago. Gallia was a great military power, but was destroyed when the surgeon monsters attacked them, and most of them died. It's the first time they see a survivor from Gallia, and a full-blooded one at that. Roxy and Fate walks back, and he asks her if she'll be okay on her own in this monster hunt. She won't be alone, as there are also warriors with her. It won't be a problem, and she's a Holy Knight too. The next day, the vineyard is destroyed. Fate and Roxy scouts ahead for kobolds, and they see that there's also a bigger kobold apart from the smaller ones. Fate just felt hungry at the sight of it, as his time is running out and is nearly in a starvation state. He can't let Roxy see him like this, so he looks at the bigger kobold and was surprised to see his stats was at 6 digits while being level 50. The bringer of lamentation is a crown beast, which is born from accumulated aggression over a long time. This beast is clearly leagues above the usual kobolds they deal with, so this scares the villagers. But Roxy assures them that she will defeat it as she is a holy knight. The people cheered for her, but Greed said that even the crown beast is too much for a young holy knight. The villagers said that she'll have to wait for tomorrow so their warriors can be ready too. Greed asks him what's the plan, as a monster at level 50 is too much even for Fate right now. However, he can't ignore them, as well as what's happening in the Heart's Land. Especially that Fate does not want to let Lady Roxy die, so Fate dresses up for the occasion, which Greed tells Fate that he must be really into the hero act. He just told him to shut up as usual. They saw kobold warriors around the crown beast. The others are probably all kobold juniors. Greed asked him what his plan would be, and Fate responded by fighting like a glutton. He draws his sword and made it transform to a bow. He draws a magic arrow out of thin air and starts hitting the kobolds one by one. All the while kobolds tried to charge at him. The crown beast is displeased with this, and even used some of his skin as shield against the magic arrow. Fate goes after the crown beast, eliminating every kobold that gets in his way, as their bodies are split in half. In the same time, his stats reach 6-digit territory, except for magic and spirit, while gaining new skills. However, these are still not enough to beat the crown beast, which has some much higher stats. He draws up his bow and aims at the kobolds, piercing through them, but the crown beast catches it and destroys the arrow. Seeing that a ranged showdown won't work, Fate uses Grid sword form and charges towards the crown beast, but the enemy used Ruinous Strike from the brawl skill, which can penetrate armor to shatter bones and pulverize organs as they clash against each other. Fate got hit on one of his shoulders, immediately using heal, but the crown beast followed up a shockwave, which blasted Fate away towards the river. Grid told him to snap out of it as he might actually die. As the crown beast seizes the opportunity to end the fight and jump on him, Fate countered him, pretending to be dead and striking him. That's a pretty sleek trick he learned according to Grid. The greater kobold used another shockwave, but Fate dodges this time, only to end up as a platform for the beast to step upon. Fate is still determined to kill him, charging towards the beast with his sword and plunging it towards his head, activating Gluttony and absorbing some of his stats. Grid said that he should be able to use the first level hidden art by now. This would need 10% of his current stats. Fate gives up part of his stats, and Grid changed it to a bow that looks like a railgun, charging up a massive amount of energy. As the crown beast prepares another shockwave, both of them unleashes their final move. The bloody ptarmigan from the bow dives all the way through across the shockwave, overwhelming the beast as it is blown up into the air to disappear. The health regeneration skill from the Goblin King is able to heal up Fate to full health already. He called out Grid for his first level hidden art, laying waste not only to the enemy but the surroundings as well. That was just overkill. Just then, Gluttony's skill activated and his eyes turned red. He overloaded from devouring a soul of higher quality for the first time. He must hold it in, or else it will be even worse than a state of starvation. As Fate spends the rest of the night trying to hold it in, the warriors are surprised the next day when the kobolds they were supposed to kill are already dead. Who could have done this? Although all that beautiful scenery was torn to shreds. Fate is sorry about what happened to the scenery deep in his mind. While Aisha is thinking who could have done this, Roxy mentions how she saw a galleon girl the other day. They're said to be even more powerful than holy knights. Maybe it was her, but regardless, they can rest easy now. They decided to return to the capital after that, and the mother thinks that Roxy makes the most wonderful face when she's around Fate. Before going back to the capital, Aisha asked Fate for a favor. She'd like him to stay at her daughter's side to support her. Fate thinks that someone like him couldn't possibly do that, but she's not asking him to have prestige or authority, or even strength like a holy knight. What's important is the desire to help her. After all, that's how it was for her. She was a commoner without any skill, but was still able to support her husband. She believes that having only a single holy knight as her parent has caused Roxy some difficulty. As Aisha coughs out sickly, she said that she's not long for this world, which is why she wants him to be there for her to support Roxy in her place. While Fate can't give an immediate answer, all she is asking is for him to consider it, and Fate complies. As they go back to the capital, he thinks whether he is worthy of something like that when he is deceiving the whole world and carrying a secret like the gluttony skill. Later that night, Fate killed some goblins, but his eyes are still red. As Greed said, goblins won't cut it anymore. But the problem is that there are no longer any strong monsters in the area. Greed tells Fate that time's running out and he needs to decide what comes next. Inside the bar, Fate still thinks that he doesn't have the right to stand at Lady Roxy's side. One of the regulars came inside and said that Sir Hada's going to be joining the hunt for corpse. Fate is startled by this. The bar owner said said that this is probably his way of getting some glory with an easy assignment. One of them said that they should send his ass to Gallia, where he can be monster food. But people like Hado always stick to where it is safest, especially when someone else is going to end up on the Gallia expedition so soon, even after Sir Mason died. All they hope is for the worst case scenario to not come true. As the Holy Knights gather, we see the trio from the Vlerick family, obviously grinning like an evil schemer. While Roxy accepts her assignment, she went back to the grave of her father and tells him that she has been assigned to the expedition to Gallia. Fate approaches her and tells her to not go to Gallia, as she might not be able to come back. However, she has already decided to go. The Hart family is a thorn for the Vlericks and other Holy Knights, so rumor has it that they also arrange for this expedition to Gallia. As the trio of Vlericks cheers to a glass of wine, they're amused how they got easy jobs unlike Roxy. Hado asked Raphael that it's time to tell him the truth about his research into immortality. However, they just said to Hado that he's counting on him to deal with the leech. Under the night sky of a full moon, Fate thinks that while he can't overturn official orders and stop Lady Roxy, he still won't let the Holy Knights treat them like trash and cause them suffering. Behind Fate, we see a group of warriors and a Holy Knight. As they face against each other, Hado is full of arrogance and confidence, while Fate is just hungry for revenge. Hado asked the man standing in front of him if he is the leech named Corpse. His henchmen offered the Holy Knight to take care of Corpse themselves. He agrees and lets the warriors charge at Fate. As the warriors slipped onto Fate, he notices how slow they are moving. Grid said that this is the result when your stats are already leagues above your enemies. Fate thinks of using the skill, Rune of Strike, that he learned from the crown beast he defeated. As one of the warriors take their turns in charging at Fate, he effortlessly pushes them away, even without using his sword to knock them down. This sight frightens Hado and his companions, making the remaining warriors run away in fear. The Holy Knight asks them to stay and don't leave him behind, while the masked man gets closer and closer to him. Hado is pissed off that a mere monster is daring to make a fool out of him, so he prepares for battle and points his sword towards Fate. To make the knight's pride fall even worse, Fate reveals his face to one of his former employers, the Vlerick family. Hado is confused how the guard they treat as trash is suddenly this powerful. Fate menacingly looks at Hado, tells him that he doesn't owe him an explanation, and this pisses off the Holy Knight, while saying that he is the second son of the Vlerick family, all while clearly shaking in fear. Fate provokes him to show what the Holy Knights are capable of, the power that they're so proud of. As Fate checks the stats of Hado, he notices the unique skill of the Holy Knights, called the Holy Sword Technique, along with his stats being at 6 digits, despite only being at level 30. He despises the world for granting a scumbag like Hado such a skill. He asks his partner, Greed, if he can shatter a Holy Sword to pieces, and tells him that there is no way an artificial Holy Sword can edge him out. Fate is reassured of Greed's capabilities, while Hado is feeling arrogant that his sword skills at this close of a range will net him an easy victory. Because of this, he says that Fate is really a piece of trash for thinking he can win in this scenario. As he uses the skill Grand Cross onto him, this skill is too slow for Fate, as he simply positioned himself behind the knight's back as the skill misses him. He cuts off the knight's sword in half, and the knight is looking at his broken sword in disbelief, while Fate holds the other piece. How could a holy sword be cut in half like this? Fate tells the Holy Knight to pick up the remaining half of his sword. As Hado takes a step back, Fate tells him to don't run away, as he is a proud Holy Knight. Hado trips and fell to the ground, while Fate tells him to stand up, as he needs to be taught a lesson, quoting from him that defiant dogs need strict discipline. As Hado begs him to stop, he throws him away with a single hand and smashes his face into a tree repeatedly. The Holy Knight's face is bruised and bleeding while he begs him to stop. Fate is pissed off of the man's audacity to say that when they are treating people like insects, while a proper Holy Knight like Lady Roxy is going to Gallia. Hado asked him to spare his life, but Fate is still mad at him, so he throws him away up in the sky, then uses his strongest ability, Bloody Parmesan, which consumed part of his stats, while he releases a massive amount of energy onto the sky, tearing the Holy Knight's limbs apart while barely leaving him alive. Hado asked him why he didn't finish him off, asking to just kill him already. However, Fate has still questions for him about Roxy Hart. Hado told him that Roxy said that if her life can save even a single citizen of this kingdom, then she will gladly go to Gallia and fight on the front lines. As Hado tells him that he'll get Roxy's expedition to Gallia cancelled if he spares him, Fate prepares to plunge his sword deep in his body, as he just told the Holy Knight to shut up. He said that this revenge is not for Roxy, but for himself. As he finishes off Hado, Gluttony activates and he acquires a moderate increase in stats while obtaining the unique skill of the Holy Knights, the Holy Sword technique. Greed jokingly said that he's now a Holy Knight, but Fate said that the capital would never accept that, and he despises most of the Holy Knights, so he doesn't want to be one. Greed then offers access to his second level, as the idea of Hado's stats being inside of Fate is making him puke. As Greed absorbs some of his stats, he transforms into a great sight, which can cut through anything, even the ephemeral. This got Fate wondering if the sight could cut short Lady Roxy's trip to Gallia. As Roxy prepares on her trip, she enters the carriage as the members of the Heart Estate looks at her sadly as she goes away. Roxy told them that it will be only 3 years, and she will be back soon. She tells Haru to look after the family while she is gone, as the remaining members of the Heart Estate wishes her luck. As she looks at Fate, she just said that they'll meet again, while deep inside Fate is hoping that he could join her. But his secret about the gluttony skill must not be known. Fate wishes her luck as Roxy finally heads off to Gallia. She also left a letter of recommendation for Fate, since if he were employed in a Lord's manor, he will be safe from the Vlerics. Roxy was worried about Fate until the end, but Fate refuses this and said to Haru that he's going to make his way as a warrior from now on. As Fate prepares his equipment as a warrior, the least he could do is to support her if he cannot stop her from going to Gallia. The remaining members of the Heart Estate wishes him luck in his new journey, while giving him the money he has earned during his stay. This isn't farewell, as Fate is still planning to meet with them, but for that to happen, he must first go to Gallia. As he bids his farewell to the bar owner and another regular he often talks to, he rides one of the carriage, while thinking that he'll protect Roxy with his power. Meanwhile, we see a mysterious woman from a castle, saying that things are shaping up nicely. As Roxy formally introduces herself to the Gallia Holy Knights by taking the post held by her father, the knights and warriors cheered her on. One of the warriors named Miria is joining her on the battle in Gallia, where they are to face off the divine dragon that killed Sir Mason and his troops. She wishes to follow Roxy wherever she goes. Another of the warriors named Mugan also volunteered for the trip and introduced himself to Miria and Roxy. Miria said that there are people that are just excited for a chance to see the living natural disaster known as the divine dragon, and Mugan did not deny this, as the chance to test their strength out on a strong opponent is something that many warriors relish. Miria thinks of him as being an idiot, while Roxy tells her to stop as she is going too far. She just got excited by being scolded by Roxy while hugging her. Mugan said that he actually volunteered because of Sir Mason. He marched under his orders and would like to avenge Sir Mason. Roxy thanks him for this, but is worried that his family might be opposed to his decision. However, his daughter, named Raine, is actually looking for some Gallian relics, so this works out for him. This got her curious, and he just explained that he came from a long line of scholars who do research, while he is the only warrior among them. Miria is amazed by this, apart from Mugan of course. This joke got accepted well by Mugan and Roxy, while she thinks that the trip may just work out with the two of them accompanying her. Inside a futuristic looking lab, we see Raine being asked by her lab assistant about something. The assistant said that the leech called Corpse has been hunting goblins. One of the goblins' arm that they have appears to have wounds that are not caused by normal arrow wounds. Raine takes a look at this and thinks of it as a very fascinating thing indeed. She looks at a book and after viewing a few pages, points out that she thinks it's a magic bow that caused damage. The magic arrow caused the wound. The assistant asked her, how is it different from the fireball magic? She said that the magic bow is an ability housed in the Black Sword, one of the weapons of mortal sin. These weapons are made of a material that can manipulate magic power at a high level. By controlling magic power, this would expand the possibility spectrum for skills. Raine wants to see that with her own eyes, one of the weapons of mortal sin. As Fate approaches Gallia, they first stop at Tetra, the shipping hub near the royal capital. It is a city of merchants, where the best goods in the south are gathered. As Fate walks by, he thinks to himself that it hasn't changed much. Grid asked him if he has been here before. He said that it's been 5 years already since he passed through here before arriving at the royal capital. They look for carriages that are heading to Gallia, but because they are scared to get attacked by monsters in the night, they told Fate to come back the next day instead. As he walks away, his stomach starts to growl again. So Grid told him to grab a bite first and gather intel while they are waiting. Grid told him that there might be a scabbard worthy of his greatness, as Fate got the Holy Sword technique, so the scabbard needs to live up to it. Inside the restaurant, we see a person asking warriors for help, as his village is in danger. The warrior said that this chump change is not enough to get them to hunt monsters. The guy tries to pick up the coins that fell to the ground, while one of the warriors steps on his head, telling him that if he needs help, then he must show them how much it means to him. As the guy's head is facing the ground, Fate comes by and tells them to stop, pushing the warrior away. He simply overwhelmed the warriors with simple strength strength, and they walk away as he thanks him for this. Fate said to him that it has been a while. The guy's name is Seth, and he recognizes Fate. Then we see a flashback of Fate getting water down from the well, while kids along with Seth bully him for his worthless skill that makes his stomach growl. While Fate and his father were together, a man screams that the monsters are coming. His father killed the slime that was attacking the village, and Fate is impressed by this. Inside their house, his father praised him for how good he has gotten with handling herbs. Fate said that it is because he gets hurt all the time, and offers him tea while at it. As his dad died, one of the villagers said that the village chief kept Dean, his dad, as part of the village because of the spirit technique skill. Now that he's dead, there is no longer any reason to look after Fate anymore. The villagers tell him to go away as he is just worthless garbage. This scares Fate and makes him cry. As the flashback comes to an end, we see Seth, the son of the village chief, begging Fate for help in saving the village he once stayed at. Seth realizes how self-centered his request is, but he is desperate for the strength of a warrior. Grid said that this works out nicely, as he also needs to sate gluttony. Fate agrees. Seth was worried that he might have not accepted the request. While Fate is still resenting the village that kicked him out, he still has memories of his father in that village. As they enter the village at night, we see that the villagers are dissatisfied as Seth brought back the garbage that they once exiled back then. The chief asks him what is the meaning of this, and he just replied that Fate is now strong, defeating some warriors with his very own eyes. The villagers think that Seth is pathetic for not hiring some warriors properly. The chief said that he'll find some warriors tomorrow, but the villagers are worried that the monsters might attack first, as there have been cries from a nearby forest since yesterday. The villagers are not sure if they can last until the warriors arrive. The chief said that they will use Fate as a sacrifice to buy them some time. Seth asked Fate to just let it go while apologizing for the treatment he is receiving. As Seth offers him a cup of tea inside the house, Fate asks where his wife has been, as he hasn't seen her yet. He just said that the monsters got her, and the village is still as poor as ever. The chief has absolute authority, and he used to think that his father was always right. Now that he has a daughter to take care of, he must step up and get his act together for her sake. Fate said that Seth has really changed, and he said that it's all because of his daughter. This reminded Fate of his father and smiles a little bit, then proceeded to ask him about the monsters around the village. The first monster showed up a month ago. While the witnesses made it sound like there's more than one monster, the monsters can also fly, which is nothing like the village dealt with before, so they were hiring warriors without realizing the market price. Fate's stomach starts to growl, and Seth teases him that he is still as hungry as ever, while Seth prepares to get more food. Grid said that the village thinks that things would work out if they hire warriors, pretty typical for a small village. However, if the monsters can fly, then this changes everything. Grid said that they're most likely gargoyles, which are on the clever side. They start by probing attacks to see how humans react. Then the entire pack attacks in a swarm when the time is right. It's a lot like kobolds. Fate notices the little girl looking at him, asking him who he's talking to. Fate said that he's just talking to himself. The little girl offers him candy, and he takes it. He offered to play with her for a while, and they played arm wrestling, which got the girl very happy. As Seth comes back with food and Fate starts eating, we see that Fate is suddenly tired and passes out. This puzzled Seth what was happening, as there should be nothing in the food he provided. The little girl said that she gave candy to him, which was given to her by the chief. The chief is dead serious about sacrificing Fate to buy some time. While they're trying to wake up Fate, a villager screams. As Seth checks outside, a swarm of gargoyles is there, while Fate is still asleep.